We're going to go over every single operator in Stronghold Protocol Alliance in a sort of TFT style rundown. I'll talk about how good each of them are and how you should probably play them. I've played this mode like a damn full-time job, 8 hours every day for the last 3 days, so I think I have a pretty decent grasp on it, especially since I beat Dire Protocol quite a few times. But the CN bros will know far more because they played it for far longer, so please let me know in the comments below what I got wrong and what broken interactions I'm missing. Okay, starting off with Insider, he's honestly not the best. The Laterano opener is fairly weak in general, so you're really gonna just use him as a early game stabilizer rather than as like a trait piece or a ramp, because his attribute doesn't let him ramp up Laterano at all. And by the time that you get value from his attribute of Laterano Alliance giving attack speed, if you have the stacks, you probably are way later in the game, and there are significantly better DPSs than Insider. So yeah, use him to deal with drones, and then sell him off early, or just leave him on the bench. I will say, as an aside for Laterano, I think the correct opener is probably Precision, and then you eventually pivot into Laterano once you find Executor, the Executor altar. Yan, quite a bit better than Insider in terms of actually contributing to her trait. She gives 2x of the Dispatch Center when you buy her, which matters more and more later into the game, because sometimes you don't have a move except to just buy a random unit in your shop. Okay, let's say it's late game, let's say you're shop level 5. Let's just add 10 Yan stacks for fun. Other than that, basically, like any other stage 1, tier 1 unit, pretty useful as DPS early, doesn't do damage later on, and it's there as a trade bot. Pretty good to help tick up Yan kind of early. Compared to everyone else, Vigna is a really, really good unit in all stages of the game. Of course, combat-wise, she's only good early, but she's essentially free. She costs 1 to purchase and 1 to sell. So for any strategies where you need to make a lot of actions, like spend a lot of money, buy a lot of operators, Vigna is who you're looking for. You're essentially gaining a gold if you have Foresight at 100 already. Vigna's basically a piggy bank. Like, you can just buy her, hold her until you need to use that gold. So yeah, Vigna all around. Buy her when you see her. Pretty amazing unit. Lapland's going to be the start of a trend where I'm a little bit lower on anyone with the Assist Operator Alliance compared to anyone else. Mostly because, why are you activating that trait when you could activate any other trait and start stacking towards them? Your final board, a lot of the time, won't have Assist Operator on it. At least as far as I know from the builds I've seen. So there's no real reason to activate it. What Lapland's function is to be a very strong early game unit. You can kind of take Lapland into the early mid game. She's very core against the refraction units because of her silence, so she's able to help you deal with that wave when otherwise you would be unable to kill a single thing. So yeah, Lapland, a very strong early game board presence. You sell her very often, very quickly, and come to mid game. Caper, another very strong combat unit in the early game, particularly used against drones and really everything. Loop shooters, I feel like, are just generally strong. I feel like she has a decent amount of combat power that can take you to the early mid game, but for the most part, you're going to sell her off decently early. The reason why she's good compared to, like, say, Insider from before is that she actually has precision. So while she doesn't stack it herself, the fact that she's able to activate it helps with that stacking. And precision is a good all-around trait to have. Does a lot. Stacking it does a lot. Having the good generic trait is better than not having the good generic trait. Caper is a good unit. Gitano! This is an SSSSSSSSS tier unit, not because she's particularly strong in combat, but because both of her traits are econ traits, and both of them can be active on bench. You just buy Gitano, you use her as her early game DPS for a little bit, and then you leave her on your bench the entire game. You never sell her. Savage, a pretty decent operator, will just hold a lane in the early game, doesn't really do much even in the mid game, but her Alliance is good. Aid is just a really nice way to get stacks on your units early, if you're able to get those alliances active. And she's essentially a net 0 operator. She costs 2 funds. If you sell her, you get a fund, and then you get an extra fund at the next rest phase. So it's a staggered amount of gold, but it's still net even all throughout. So yeah, Savage is a good unit. An aid opener is quite good. I feel like a lot of the smoother runs has aid in some way, especially Yan. Courier. I forgot to mention this with Lazy, but this is the same thing with Courier as well. But these when obtained bonuses One, they're great, especially when its alliances do not to be active. So you can start ticking up your Yarag stats or your Yan stacks back here. Giga busted when you finally are in your later mid to late game, and then you have 3 investor active. That way, these become ×2 or ×3, and that's a big chunk. Buying this unit for +8 stacks for Yarag, that's pretty good. As a combat unit, Courier Scurrier kind of is a bulky guy that blocks 2, doesn't really do that much damage. It's fine. You're more so there to activate Yarag and Resilience, which are decent early game traits. Courier is good in your Yarag early game or your Aegir early game because Aegir really likes Resilient as well. But not much to say here. You sell him off pretty quick unless you're going 6 Yarag. All right, Spectre. You can kind of play Spectre really flexibly. She can become the one that devours, and then she'll have absurd stats to hit everybody because she attacks all blocked enemies. Like, just give her 5 block, and then she'll go crazy. Her S2 makes her a little inconsistent because she'll stun herself, so maybe you're supposed to do S1, but S2, I don't know. It can be very clutch, and battles aren't necessarily that long. And then also with her attribute, she is the early way to start stacking with Aegir. So a lot of the time, it could be good to just get Spectre killed, whether through Devour or just throw her in the front away from your healers and away from everyone else just to farm 4 stacks every round, maybe even 8 if you're lucky, and get her to revive. But yeah, Spectre is a really strong unit, really powerful in Aegir. You don't really have any reason to play her otherwise because she doesn't contribute to any meaningful traits other than to just lane hold in the early game when you're like unable to play any traits in the first place. So yeah, Spectre fantastic in Aegir, exists not really in everywhere else. Very inflexible. Mei, another one of these good stack passives where you're able to just tick up your stacks in the early game. A really good candidate to deal with drones early. Can honestly carry you a bit if you play both Victoria and Precision. If you have both, then if you put an item on Mei, then Mei will deal decent damage because she has both buffs. The 25%, I think, at 0 stacks Victoria, and then Precision, I think, is 20 to 30. I forgot, without any stacks. So you kind of get a fuck ton of stacks here. I'm unsure which skill's better. I'm kind of inclined to say 1, but I have it on 2. Even if you're not playing Victoria, Mei tends to be a really good trait bot where you're able to activate Precision, so you're able to continue stacking it. For example, this is really strong in your Laterano openers and your Yarag openers, because in Yarag, you're going to play Snow Hunter throughout your mid game. And for Laterano, all your cool units are Precision in the first place, so you just play 3 Precision. Same with for Sargon. Okay, I'm just kind of listing every comp. I guess not Yarag, or not Yarag, Aegir. But yeah, Mei, very good unit. Yeah, she won't really do much in the mid game past, but she has good traits. Texas. I was initially pretty low on Texas. I still kind of am, but I see the appeal in Swift these days. There's a Swift comp, like Swift Agile, with Leonhardt as the crux, or is it Swift Precision? I've seen like 3 or 2 different Swift comps. Texas is a really good enabler for that. You just open with Texas. She does okay damage. She's not nearly as good as Lapland in terms of like holding the line and dealing damage, but she's there. She CCs, and if you pair Texas with Tin Man, then that's just a pretty decent opener because you can then complement it with Agile. In that same vein of Texas being good for that reason, Pudding's also good for that reason, but even better because her passive, her attribute is +6 stacks, which is way more than everyone else. Like, this is like 2 or 4. Yeah. And then also she activates Agile, which is just generically a very good trait. As you know, if you've played IS at all, attack speed is just broken in Arknight, so the more that you can increase attack speed, the better. So yeah, Pudding is a very good unit. Better than Texas, but Texas is fine, specifically for Tin Man. Kuara, a giant Chud Cube who just sits there and takes infinite damage. Can even take a decent amount of damage in the mid game, though you probably should have someone else tank by then. But you will play her in your mid game because this attribute does a lot. +3 stacks if there are 3 in a row. If you could tick up your durable, that's really good. Ticking up your durable in the early game, I feel like is conducive to a pretty more seamless run, especially if you're like playing anyone that can play the trait. Yan plays it in the end because of you. Yarak plays it in the end because of Matterhorn. Sargon plays it in the end because of Heavy Rain. Durable is just a vanilla good trait. You get so much HP from it. Kuara is how you stack that up in the early game and does good work for you on your board, so that way you don't have to worry about your defenses and you can just focus on your DPS and not get overrun. Yeah, Kuara, great unit. Manticore. I'm decently high on this unit, though she's slightly inflexible. If you're going any of the verticals for any other the core alliances like Yarax, Yan, or whatever, you kind of don't really care for Manticore. But for specifically Sargon and Raid, she's very, very good. She's kind of a strong unit individually on her own. Plus, I'm of the mind that Raid is a really strong early game trait. So even if you're not like stacking up Yarag early or whatever, you just play 2 or 3 Raid. You complement Manticore with like Texas Alter, Vulpus Glofia. I don't actually know how to pronounce that name, so I always say Suzumom. Suzumom, really any of the raids, and I feel like Utage as well because she has aid. And Manticore tends to be a trait bot that activates a really good trait in raid, which kind of carries you through your early and mid game. Eventually, you have to pivot off of raid unless you're going specifically the raid comp in which you're capping out with Surtur, but I don't really know if that caps very well. But yeah, decent unit outside of Sargon. Pretty good unit in Sargon because you have a strong early game that lets you ramp up to Passenger. Executor. Like any other early game Laterano unit, it's not very good. Thankfully for Executor, you do activate Precision, which is important because you want to get your Precision stacks up. You don't particularly care about Laterano. Like, you care about Laterano when you want to start stacking. It's really slow to stack Laterano, and you don't get much value stacking Laterano early, because the only person who gets the buffs from Laterano is, from non-6 Laterano, is Insider. And, like, am I really carrying an Insider all throughout my mid-game? Not really. That sounds like shit. So, you're kind of just playing him as Precision. Like, maybe you're playing 3 Laterano, but some of the time you just have Laterano on your bench until you get to the late game stuff that lets you stack Laterano fast. Like, I've had games where I just don't play Laterano at all until like rounds 10 or 11, and then I just stack like a billion Laterano stacks from then on. I'm a pretty big believer in precision opener. So like play 3 precision, and this is one of your pieces. Matterhorn, the defense of Yarag, +3 is a lot. He's just a good vanilla tank. He will sit there, do no damage, and just absorb. The attribute is nice. The reason why Matterhorn is good comes later on is because you're able to play 6 Yarag and splash Durable in, which is just always good. So yeah, not bad. You could play him in your final board, I'm pretty sure, just because of Durable on its own. Alright, next up is Herald. Herald is a really, really good trait bot, has Victoria and Yarag, so he's a really big enabler in terms of activating both of them. He tends to be a really good flex piece where I don't know if I'm going to go Victoria or Yarag, so I'll just play this. You're 2 out of 3 in both, and you're like, okay, I could go in either way, and then you just take whatever your shop gives you. The prep is really good. When you obtain him, you get another gold. Like, that's always a good effect. That way you can have more options to turn after. Yeah, decent healer. Gets the job done a little bit. Particularly good against Seaborn enemies because of the elemental injury thing. But yeah, doesn't do much on his own, but is necessary to get these traits going in the early game. Underflow, an Aegir trait bot. Does not do anything except be an Aegir trait bot. Unplayable outside of Aegir. Not much to say there. She's a bit bulky as a actual defender, but like, yeah. She does reveal invisible, which is nice. That's kind of a nice thing to tech in your early game. But very quickly in your mid game, if you're not playing Aegir, you are not playing Underflow. You just get rid of her. Aegir is unique in that you cap out at 5 Aegir instead of 6. So it's like what? Your final board would have Ulpianus, Gladia, Spectre, this Scotty, and then one of this Spectre, one of this Scotty. Probably this Scotty so that you can have Durable in. Maybe this Mizuki if you want to have Swift. I've seen a build like that where you cap out with Necras. Underflow, you're cutting past your mid game once you hit 5 Aegir and are trying to do something else. Utage, a pretty good unit. Maybe one of the weaker raid units, just like as a combative, but her traits are extremely good. Raid, of course, like I said, is just a very strong early game trait. You get a disturbing amount of stats, and you just deploy yourself everywhere. I will say Raid is rather inconsistent despite being strong early. Sometimes you'll just bleed shit because you deploy in a bad area. And then Aid, like I said, you want to have Aid in your early game. It helps you tick up your traits early. The early stacking is just really nice. Kazimaru, pretty great unit. Marvel is an econ trait. Resilient is a little tougher. I feel like most of the verticals of the core lines play durable. Not all of them play resilient, so it's a little harder. But even despite that, Kazumaru is a really good econ unit in the sense of her attribute of only 2 operators are needed to elite it. It says combat, but really this is kind of economy because you're able to just buy 2, and then you get the free unit whenever you promote a unit, right? So that's an extra gold / actual usable unit depending on whatever you hit. Since she's easy to promote, she's easy to use in combat for a while. Like she'll be there throughout your mid game, I think. Eventually you do have to cut her because you can only have this for so long. But Kazimaru is very serviceable, holds lanes really well. Yeah, great unit. Next is Tin Man, a really, really good unit. Kind of the linchpin for both Swift and Agile. Like I said, Tin Man plus Pudding Opener is pretty common, and then you could tech in anything for Swift to have a pretty decent early game. Attack speed is broken, like I said. He generally has a good skill. Familiar with IS5, you would play Tin Man just because he was free and because he did everything, and Tin Man still does everything. So yeah, you cut him later, but you cut him like late because you're selling him for like Lin or any of the late game units, right? The exception is, I believe, there is a Swift comp where you play Leonhardt plus Tin Man plus one more Swift. It might be Vulpes. I'm not sure. This is a comp I haven't seen that much, but Tin Man is a big part of it. We'll talk more about that when we get to Leonhardt and Suzumon. Areen. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name. I've never listened to it. I've never looked at this unit, even in OG Arknights. Kind of worthless. Exists to activate Laterano and not much else. Exists to deal with drones, so that's pretty helpful if you're dealing with the drone enemies. But if you're not, why would you play this unit? As soon as you're able to get a replacement in 6 Laterano, you sell him. He's not even that good in as a Laterano opener because, again, he does not have ammo and he does not contribute to stacking Laterano, which is why I think Laterano opener sucks. Silence. Very good unit, econ trait, so you can just leave him on the bench. Powerful healer in the early game. Plus the effect plus 2 stacks on own alliances are good. It is a little bit of an L that has to be an active alliance, but I mean, it's Foresight. It's really difficult to not have it active. If you do what I say and have Gitano on your bench, you should always have Foresight and Marvel active. By the way, you should always have Marvel active, if I haven't said that before. It's just a disgusting amount of econ. You get too many free rolls. It's too bad for you to not have Marvel active. Too bad on your econ, I mean. Wanqing. This is kind of the linchpin of early Yan stacking. If you could get an early enough Wanqing, then you're already like buying and selling or whatever a bunch of units in the early game. You should get a decent amount of Yan stacks. Nothing insane because you don't have anything to buff it up with like Nosaria or anything like that. But this is your early method to get stacks. Kind of a core part of Yan in your early game. Pretty good unit. Pretty bad outside of Yan, but for Yan specifically, pretty good unit. Papyrus. This is Sargon's early game stack generator, sorry. I will regularly play double Papyrus, so you can get 2 activations. You'll get plus 8 stacks around if you have Sargon active. And then you just have Papyrus plus Heavy Rain, which we'll talk about. One more Sargon, and then a lot of DPS around it. And you kind of have an immortal frontline because you're double healer defender. At least through your early to mid game, right? And then you'll get a really, really high amount of Sargon stacks. The more stacks you get early, the better your passenger is as well, when you eventually get to him. So yeah, Papyrus, good unit, even when not counting her trait. She's a decent healer, provides a barrier. That's kind of nice. You'll have to see it. Can also bounce healing if you want to go that route, but I like barriers. Heavy Rain, the same vein of Papyrus. Not actually in the same vein of Papyrus. She's there as a trait bot, for the most part, even in your late game. Like, yes, she does get fairly bulky, but against arts damage, it's whatever. Heavy Rain is a defender. She's a decent defender. The reason why Heavy Rain is so good in Sargon is because she has the durable trait, so that lets you flex in a Mudrock or whatever defender in order to make your Sargon cap out a lot bulkier. I've always considered the standard 6 Sargon board to be 6 Sargon, including Heavy Rain, plus Typhon, plus Mudrock, and Mudrock activates Durable. Not like an amazing unit in terms of just combat effectiveness, but amazing unit in the sense of her traits are very good. Sargon plus Durable. Generically, you can just splash in Durable as well, so this unit's pretty decent outside of Sargon. Great in Sargon. Rock. In combat, her skill is kind of buns because she stuns herself for the entire round after her cast is over. So after her cast is done, she's completely worthless. But her skill is extremely good. Her attribute, rather, you gain a piece of equipment. Especially if you're playing Victoria, it is disturbing. That is a disturbing attribute. If you make a 2-star Rock, you get 2 more. Like, it's crazy. When I say 2-star, I mean elite. That's just TFT lingo, my bad. I have a tough time separating it. But yeah, the traits are good. When you're playing Victoria, Rock enables you to play an agile mid-game alongside of it. So that way you can have as much attack speed as possible. Rocks are important to farm a lot of items for Victoria, since Victoria is contingent on having items, since those carrying equipment deal more damage. So yeah, good traits, good attribute. Just a shitty unit in combat, though, is the problem. Gravel. One of the worst raids where, like I said, raid is a really strong early game alliance, but in specifically Aegir, this unit is disgustingly good. Gravel is probably core in Aegir because of this, where you're able to get 3 stacks of Resilient, and then your Aegir units, since they keep stacking this because they keep eating the Gravel, the Aegir devours the Gravel, right? So they get plus 3 stacks of Resilient. Then Gravel comes back online because she is a quick redeploy, immediately respawn, and stack another 3, so no downside for the Devour. I don't know. Gravel is stupid, absurdly good in Aegir, mid everywhere else. Ceylon, a really good unit, all things considered. Just a decent healer. Plus 2 stacks, even if you're on bench. So even if you're not playing Ceylon, you just keep her on your bench and she'll keep stacking, and then sell her when you need to, of course. Don't get too greedy with this effect because it's only 2 stacks. But that's really good through your early game, right? Plus she has aid, so you're stacking even more. A combination of her attribute plus her alliance means you're stacking a lot for whatever attribute you're choosing. So an aid early game, like I said, really good. AKA good unit. Tier 3 units. Exusier. Kind of double dips here. Good prep. You get an additional fun when you buy her. That's good. You get Marvel active. That's really good. That's like infinity econ worth because you just get a stupid amount of free refreshes. And it's Laterano enabler, which doesn't particularly matter that much. Again, Exusier doesn't have any ammo, so she doesn't really benefit from Laterano. Instead, she'll benefit from the AoE splash that you get if you're running Precision. What you'll find when you're playing your Laterano mid-game, early to mid-game, is that Exusier is your main DPS until you hit like the insane units in Laterano. Good unit. Great unit, even. Waifu. Exists to stack Yan, exists to give resilience. As a unit, she's kind of mid, only has 1 block. Okay, Waifu I've decided sucks as a unit. Okay for the passives, as a unit, bad. Scotty, great unit to be honest. These are 3 powerful traits. If you're playing Aegir, Scotty's pretty much on your board for the rest of the game because it gives you durable. If you're not playing Aegir, durable plus raid are really strong. Like I said, raid's a really good early game trait, so you just play Scotty for like most of your mid game. It helps you stack up durable because plus 1 stack to each of these for every 3 units defeated. This won't get too many stacks, but like raid are just good units, so you'll get a few of them. Yeah, strong early to mid game unit. Sell it afterwards if you're not playing Aegir. Oh, okay, actually on the raid comp though, it's like what you cap out with this Texas Alter plus Surtur. I think you keep Scotty there as well because you get durable. That's another one, but I don't think that comp caps that high. Enforcer, kind of as much as I shit talk the Laterano early game, Enforcer is a decently good unit in the sense of you get a lot of stacks here. Plus 3 stacks for self and the Operator 1 tile behind. Even not necessarily Laterano. So if you're not playing Laterano, you're allowed to just stack whoever else, but it's more efficient, obviously, if you do Laterano because that way you can stack itself. This is one of your early stack enablers for Laterano. In fact, I would recommend Enforcer stacking early rather than Executor. Like, this is, like, what, 7 bullets for 2 stacks? Insider maybe casts once or twice, only has 14 ammo. Like, it takes a long time. On average, you'll get maybe 4 stacks a turn, versus Enforcer. If you get an early Enforcer, that's more of a signifier that maybe you should go for Laterano because you get 6 stacks a turn, because +3 for the one behind it, which should be another Laterano. In fact, I'd recommend, even though it's wonky for the positioning, you would stack Executor because he also has precision, so it also lets you stack that alliance as well. But yeah, Enforcer is a pretty good unit. Honeyberry, kind of a mid unit. You're only using Honeyberry when you don't have anything else to spend your gold on and you want this attribute. It's a decent attribute, +4 stacks. It's the issue with it is that it's uncontrolled. It could go into stacks that it could go into alliances that you're gonna drop. A cheese that I do, it just takes a lot of APM, is I bench every alliance that I do not want to get stacked, and then I buy Honeyberry, and then I add all those units back. It takes a lot of time, so I wouldn't recommend it too much, especially if you're slow in just general APM in this mode. But that's pretty much her only use case. As a healer, like, sure, why not? But I'm sure you have better healers that tend to be a part of, like, your actual trait that you're going for. Sorry, alliance that you're going for. And Assist Operator, like I said earlier when talking about Lapland, I think sucks. Snow Hunter, extremely, extremely good unit. +6 stacks is a lot. For both Precision and Yarag, that's really good. Even if you're just playing Precision. If you're playing Yarag, honestly, if you're playing Precision as well, to be honest. If you're playing either of these traits, this tends to be your mid-game carry. I have gone up to, like, round 10 or 11 with just Snow Hunter alone as my DPS. Obviously, I have traits and stuff complementing it, but I'm talking about with my items. Just Snow Hunter is like your primary carry throughout all that. Pretty good. I've played runs where I have 2 Elite Operator Snow Hunters just because I got lucky, and those 2 are able to hold the line. All around great unit. Potentially one of the things you cut when you hit 6 Yarag later on for your maximum cap, but some of the time Precision is good enough and stacked enough that it's correct to keep Snow Hunter, and then you just play a different Precision unit with it, probably Typhon. Minimalist, same exact reason as Vigna, a free unit, costs 1, sells for 1. But as a trait bot, significantly better than Vigna, because I put a lot more credence into Agile more than Resilience that Vigna has. Also, a really good way to just get Sargon started. Yeah, mostly the Agile, though, is the important part. That and the literal 1 gold. Really good unit in the utility that Minimalist gives. Aurora, kind of a trait bot, to be honest. She does apply cold and freeze, but it's very minimal compared to, like, any of the actual Yarag generators that you would actually go for if you're playing for Yarag. I think Aurora exists solely to be a wall, and then to activate Yarag, and then to dump the second you're able once you're 6 Yarag, because she doesn't have any complementing traits, in the sense that Matterhorn has durable, so you keep Matterhorn the entire game. You don't keep Aurora. Just, like, a good unit in and of itself, but doesn't scale very well. Swire, extremely good unit. I feel like this unit does a lot of damage deceptively, gives you a lot of gold as well, assuming you have her traits active, and it makes it so you're able to start playing into Investor. It's kind of high roll that you're able to hit Investor, but when you do, it's, like, disgustingly good, especially with those effects that I mentioned before, the when obtained effects. +2 stacks, well, if you get that, multiply that by 2, that's just way more effective. If you multiply it by 3, that's even crazier, but that's, like, super high roll. Really good role player in Yan. A lot of the time, because Swire exists, it's a lot easier to hit Investor when you're playing Yan, just naturally through the game progression. Really good unit, gives you a lot of extra gold every round. You love to see it. Philae, this is one of the key units in early game Sargon. Alongside Papyrus, you're going to play Philae every single time. in order to activate her stacks. A tip I was given, which I would also do if I were you, is swap her to S1 rather than S2. S2 lasts forever, 40 seconds. That's pretty much the entire round. S1 lasts 15 seconds. And if you read her attribute, it's +4 stacks on skill activation, meaning you could activate the skill twice or 3 times per combat, and then you'll get way more value from this attribute. In conjunction with Papyrus, Philae is the way you're going to generate stacks in your early game for Sargon if you're going to go this route. Good unit. I will say, though, because she is mono alliance, just Sargon, she is the first thing to cut almost, unless you really, really, really need the wall. You dump Philae for a good Sargon unit. Heidi. This is the linchpin of Victoria. She is both Aid and Victoria, so those are both stupid useful traits. The sooner you get Aid going, the better, so you can stack everything. And then because of her attribute, where you get +2 for every operator of a different tier, this is extremely easy to abuse. It's not anything you have to think about. You just put Victoria units on their board. They're all different tiers anyway, for the most part. So you just start stacking a stupid amount of units with Heidi. I think Heidi's on your board a majority of the game if you're playing Victoria. Eventually, you might cut her. That'd be in the late game because you get an extra item for every 25 stacks. And that matters a lot because the second that you upgrade those items, they're amazing. Great flexible unit in the sense of being a bard and giving aid. And amazing unit in Victoria. A core part of Victoria. If you hit an early enough Heidi with pieces around it, that's when you consider playing Victoria. Next up is Andriana. Kind of a dog shit unit, to be honest. I'm going to say outright. Her existence is to proc Aegir, but because you only need 5 Aegir instead of 6, she's like the first unit that you cut. The reason why she exists and the reason why she is on your board a lot of the time is if you have enemy aerial units, a lot of the time the Aegir class will just get blown out by the aerial rounds and kill literally nothing. Andriana exists to deal with that. Then you have to use S1 because she won't kill any of the aerial units if she's on S2 because she won't target enemies below 50% HP. So she kind of has to be S1 for that reason. Yeah, not a good unit outside of Aegir. Not even good unit inside Aegir. Just there by necessity. Next up is Ethan, who is broken. Not because of his alliance, it's kind of dog shit. I don't care for assist operator, like I said. His skill, like, he's okay. He's more so there in your early game. If you happen to hit him early, that's when you put him on your board. Otherwise, you sell him for your gold back. The reason why he's good is because of his attribute. You get an operator from the alliance with the most members. I mean, it's basically just a tailored for a unit. Ethan's great. Next up is Yera. She's fairly core in Yerag because of her attribute, which is really good. It gives you the Never Melt Ice. And if you promote her, you just get 2 more, which is basically an upgraded one. You want to give those to all of your Yerag units. That way you can have as many frozen applications as possible. Reason being is because your primary stack generator is Praminix. And that's why Yera is so good, specifically to complement Praminix. You want to freeze as many people possible in a range. That is the major stack generator in your mid game for Yerag. Also, it's just generally nice to have Foresight active, so you can get some extra funds if you're able to tick that up. Obviously, don't go for the 100 if you're playing Yerag, because how do you even do that? Go for 10 every now and then. Yera's a good unit. I will say, though, she does tend to be one of the ones that you cut for your cap out for the Carlin vertical. Next is Gramps. I've never learned how to pronounce this word, so I've always just called him Gramps. He is Fiametta's grandpa after all. Anyways, extremely good unit. This unit becomes extremely bulky. You get a ton of defense from Laterano and Durable. You always splash in Durable if you can in Laterano until you're like capped out, where maybe you can forego the defensive trait. But I feel like in your mid game, you want to keep Durable so that way you can protect your DPSs. Kind of the linchpin in Laterano because this is your only good tank in the entire line. Every other Laterano unit are either utility or DPS. So this is the only good tank, and it is a good tank because you do get buffed by the Laterano stacks. We're starting to enter the area where Laterano stacks matter because these units actually have ammo. Wow! Laterano's good now when you hit tier 4. Please play the units now. Praminix. Like I said before, the core part of stacking for Yerag, you cannot remove this unit from your board if you want to play Yerag. You need her to stack. You must stack with her. Plus, she has Aid, which is generically a good trait. with this attribute, like let's say you have a good setup with Ramonix plus Yara or Gnosis or whatever, you're probably gonna get like 10 or more stacks around. Eunectus. I used to be really, really, really low on this unit. Now I think she's better than I give her credit for. This prep is not bad. If you're able to promote Eunectus and you get a bunch of these, you give these to Pepe later on for the instant cast, and then she just permastuns the enemy while your team gets to ramp up their Sargon stacks, which is a really nice combo. Not flexible in the slightest, completely fucking worthless outside of Sargon unless you really want this item, since she's mono trait. Only blocks 1. She's a good holder of this item because she activates her S3. She's really good inner skill, completely worthless outside of her skill, and she typically will not cast twice. She'll only cast once throughout the entire fight, and that's why I think she's bad, but she can be your main DPS, or rather a secondary DPS throughout your Sargon mid game. Kind of just holding on for dear life until you're able to hit Passenger. Not too bad, but not good at all. Bagpipe, one of the early drivers for Victoria or Foresight. If you're playing Victoria especially, she becomes a lot better because she gets this insane damage buff if you give her an item. If you're able to get Bagpipe early enough, you will generate a lot of Victoria stacks alongside the Heidi, and that's kind of how you like snowball out of control if you're playing Victoria. But if you get Bagpipe too late, she's pretty bad. She only blocks 1. She doesn't even deal that much damage. Good early to mid unit. If you get her too late, she's really terrible, in my opinion. Mizuki, not bad. More of an Aegir trait bot, but like in combat, he's honestly not too bad of a unit. There's some utility with Swift there. I do see in the Swift comp, sometimes you do play this unit as like a go-between before your cap out, like just as your mid-game board. Yeah, not too bad, but not really great either. Not flexible in the slightest. You have to play Mizuki in Aegir or Swift. You can't just splash them very well. There's not enough slots on your team for that. Kind of a middle of the pack to bad unit, but good where he's good. Next up is Warfarin. Extremely good unit. Very flexible unit. Can be played in all boards, basically, in your mid game, even in your late game, maybe. If you have her attributes set on a unit with a very low cost activation, you can essentially farm 10 stacks of battle, which is really good. You get Marvel active, which you really want to have active at all times. So yeah, not much to say here. Extremely easy to use and extremely easy to get value out of. So yeah, Warfarin, great unit. All right, next up is Gnosis, the other half of the Yarag driver. It's kind of a more consistent Yara where you don't really need the items. You'd rather have both so that you can have even more consistent uptime on Frozen. You just have Gnosis permafreeze in range of Praminix, and this is when you start farming infinity stacks for Yarag. It's really good. It's Gnosis is core to Yarag for sure. Great unit in there. Also gives Agile, which again, an all-around great trait. Very flexible trait, can go anywhere. Even outside of Yarag, because you give Agile, it's fine to splash in a Gnosis. That way you can have a bit of CC too. Pretty good unit, all things considered. Mulberry, another pretty good unit. You get a lot of stacks just for getting Mulberry. It activates Yan, which is good. It makes it really easy to add 8 into Yan. So it helps for that early stacking as much as possible. Not much to say here. Mulberry is just a decently good unit. Not like the most insane healer, but still pretty good. Just all the traits work together really well. Blaze! This unit is really good. If you hit Blaze early, you can kind of commit either Yan or Victoria. Not because of Blaze herself, but because of her attribute, where if you sell her, you get Blaze Altar, which is the main DPS throughout the mid and early late game for both Yan and Victoria. So this is just a really good unit. Plus, if you're playing like, say, Ami or something, and you want to splash Victoria or Yan with one or the other, you could play both Blazes, and you'd have 2 out of 3 for both already, and build your team around it. Great unit because of the attribute. Fiametta! Okay, so this is your way to stack with ammo. I low-key feel like this unit is giga ass. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but this is partially why Laterano feels inconsistent to me, because you could get this guy, which is cool and holds the line, or you could get Fiametta, who does fucking nothing. Maybe S3 I should pick. Probably why I'm not doing so well with Fiametta, to be honest. But she feels really bad to me. Even this, like, stack thing, like, it's not too good. 10 bullets for 2, like, you'd have to already have Laterano stacked for this to be amazing. I don't know. I'm low on Fiametta personally, but is a trait bot for Laterano and is a decent way to get some stacks. Enos, great unit, raid unit, and foresight unit. Means good in your early to mid game, good for your econ because it generates stacks every rest phase. So every 3 rounds, assuming that Enos is your only foresight stack generator, you're gonna get +2 funds, which is just generally pretty good. More room to do whatever. Just a good, generically good unit. Next is Cruz. I'm actually a lot higher on Cruz than I used to be. I thought this unit was kind of bad, and then I experimented with her and precision a lot more, and now I think she's actually quite good. I see Cruz as being a really strong mid-game carry. Can kind of take you to the late game on her own. Not on her own. You need to have 3 precision active. But she's able to stack a fuck ton of precision because of her attribute. You just stick her on any unit with a low skill activation cost that's also precision, and you can kind of like snowball this. Like Cruz plus Executor maybe could be good. Really anybody. I've done Cruz plus Snow Hunter as my Yarag mid game, and then I got a ton of precision stacks. I got so many precision stacks that I felt disincentivized to remove precision in my Yarag cap out. But yeah. Next up is Mountain. A decent way to get stacks on Investor, but Investor must be active is the problem, and Investor is really hard to activate because what? You have Mountain plus Swire Altar as your 3/4. And then the next investors are up here in the 5 costs, tier 5s rather, Silver Ash and Jessica. It's really difficult to get Mountain going, so I kind of am very low on Mountain. I feel like going for this 70 stack thing is extremely, extremely high roll and difficult to do and does not happen very often. But you can hold Mountain on your bench just to activate Investor, but I feel like you don't ever buy Mountain as the second investor. You'd rather make good use of your funds in order to get to your late game. And then once you get either Silver Ash or Jessica, that's when you're now looking out for Mountain, and then you buy Mountain as your third investor, which is a bit inconsistent, but like this investor effect is powerful in and of itself. A Mountain can also be a decent lane holder, kind of fine. Doesn't really get buffed by any traits is the problem. Only has investor as a trait, so yeah, I kind of think Mountain is mid to bad. Next is Suzamom. This unit is the linchpin of the Raid Swift team. Doesn't cap out particularly hard, but is a very strong mid game and a decent late game. You just play raids around it and swifts around it. I think it's like what? Surtur to cap out, Necras for frontline. Play agile around it because you're also playing Tin Man. Yeah, it's a decent comp, and this is a good role player for specifically that comp. Even outside of it, she's decent because she gives 8 stacks to both of these. So if you're playing raid through your early game, it's just a nice buff up for your team. You just play raid early, sell the raids later, and play whatever vertical you're going to go in the first place if you're not going the striker raid team. Or strike swift, my bad. Yeah, good unit. Next up is Askgen. Askgen? Askjenny? Askjenna? Askjeny. Askjeny is a pretty good unit, has Marvel there to give you that econ boost, and gives you a fund every round. That's just generically good to ramp you up. Just keep Askjeny on your board the entire early to mid game if you get her early enough. Have 1 extra fund the entire game. It's just good. Of course, she is never on your late game board, so you do have to sell her off eventually. But for as long as you could greed having her, great unit. Leonhardt. Leonhardt is a pretty good unit. I used to be fairly low on Leonhardt. Now I'm actually kind of high on him. He does a lot, does decent damage with his skill, can resistance shred, which is really nice. Can act as a poor man Tifon, which, by the way, I just looked up how to pronounce that. I said it earlier incorrectly. Tifon? Tifon? Tifon. Tifon. Leonhardt is good in any comp that can play Tifon because Leonhardt can just be the poor man's Tifon. Precision is just a generally good trait, and then the skill is good enough as utility because of the resistance shred. Leonhardt is also a core part of the precision swift composition that I've seen a few times. It's like Leonhardt passenger, swift with Leonhardt plus Tin Man, and then you tech in agile because Tin Man has agile. It's some combination there. I think it was like 3 swift or something. I've seen it a few times in my online games. But yeah, it's a really good unit inside of those comps. Texas! Agile raid. Okay, this is the one I was thinking of. You play Texas with Tin Man in the Suzamom comp because it then gives you Swift plus Agile. But yeah, Texas generically is a really good unit because, also inconsistent unit though, but a really good unit just because of raid. Like I said, just a really good early to mid game trait can carry your you with early rounds. Just a good skill in general, but because of the way Texas is, she is very inconsistent in that raid procs by deploying her when she activates her skill. Well, when you're using her S3, which normally you are using, if this runs out, she must be dead or else. If she's not dead, she just sits there and does nothing. If she ends up surviving her cast, then she sits there unable to activate her skill at all. So she must be defeated in order for her to be useful. But in her first cast, it's still pretty good. Pretty generically good unit. You almost never play it in the late game unless you're playing the Raid Swift comp. Volnik, the only alliance here that matters is Aid, which is nice to have early. The issue it's on a tier 4 units. It's okay for Mulberry because she's a Yan, so she can tick up Yan regardless, since she's kind of necessary to hit 6 Yan. But Volnik is just Aid, so it's whatever. Her attribute is pretty decent, though. There's no reason to not buy Volnik if you have the extra gold, because you get 2 extra gold in the next rest phase, so it's just an econ thing. Kind of like in the same way that Savage was way back in tier 1. It's a net 0 because I think she costs 3. It actually doesn't say here how much she costs, which is the most annoying thing about this whole UI. If you sell her, you get 1 gold, and then the turn after, you get 2 gold. So it's net neutral if she does cost 3. Very middling unit. Executor Alter. This unit is SSSSSS tier. This unit is disgusting. You have him on S2 so you can activate skill as much as possible. You get 12 ammo. Every time you spend 7 bullets, which you probably have more than 12 ammo if you have Laterano stacks, you get so many stacks. 6 Laterano, 3 Foresight at E1. If you end up getting him at Elite 2, that's fucking disgusting. Executor is your method of getting the disgusting Laterano stack games that you see screenshots of, where you're at like 700 Laterano stacks. The reason is this unit. If you get dropped in early enough Executor Alter, you have to reconsider your line and see if your items work out. Because if you give this guy like a Rage Blade or something, the buoy. I actually don't know what it's called. The one where every hit you gain additional attack speed. Executor will go infinite and farm infinite Laterano and Foresight. And that Foresight is important because sometimes you're farming 20 Foresight stacks around. That's +4 funds in your next rest phase. It's disturbing. This unit is so unbelievably good. It's crazy. And he's his own sustain. So you don't actually need to... You can just throw him in the front. Just make sure he doesn't randomly get killed. It feels so terrible when Executor dies and you don't get any stacks that round. It fucking blows. But yeah, generally speaking, an amazing unit. Great for Laterano and a key part of the like Exodia Yan comp where you're trying to get Foresight to 100. Executor is the way to get Foresight to 100. That way you can do the crazy when obtained things. Next up is Blaze Alter, kind of the pretty great unit in specifically Yan and Victoria, and is even fine outside of it. It's just that you'd rather have these 2 traits active, that way you can have buffs for her. But Blaze Alter is your main DPS pretty much in both of these comps until the late game. She kind of does so much work. I had a time where I managed to get a upgraded Laterano clip item, and I gave it to her, and it kind of felt really good. I don't actually know if that's correct mathematically, but it felt good. Anyways, great unit. Yeah, ladder and clip. Blaze's downtime is really, really shit, but you can recover a lot of ammo and just keep continuing firing. It's really good. Next up is everybody's favorite Ulpi. Low-key, I'm kind of getting slowly more and more convinced that this guy's kind of a chud. I thought that this guy was the core piece of Aegir, but it feels like both Spectres and Gladia are more useful than him. I've seen it where this guy just does nothing even with infinite Aegir Devour stats. Though, admittedly, I don't play the Aegir comp that much because it's one of my least favorite. Yeah, I'm kind of low on this guy, but he is part of your cap out for 5 Aegir. Not bad, not bad. Surtur, extremely narrow. Like, you can only play Surtur in Raid. That Raid comp that I mentioned before. And it is a pretty good cap out. Like, Surtur's ability, as we all know, just Surtur it, is an extremely good skill. It's just that that's the only comp that can play Surtur, because who the fuck else plays Raids? Plus, the Raid comp in and of itself is kind of inconsistent, especially it feels like the Raid trade breaks against the boss, which is like, okay, so you're just useless in the very last thing that we have to do? I don't know. Surtur in the Raid comp is very, very good, unplayable outside of it. Not very flexible. Civilite Eterna. I think this unit is quite good, but you need a lot of setup. I've had this unit farm a lot of attributes stacks before. Sorry, alliance stacks before. Gives Marvel, which is cool. And the skill is pretty good. Just kind of keeps everyone topped up. Yeah, not bad, but the issue is you get this effect pretty late. If you get Civilite Eterna kind of early, then she's very good in stacking. At tier 5, though, if you're kind of digging, you kind of have your team already built. And it's really difficult to slot in Civilite Eterna. I don't know. I guess mediocre unit, because it's hard to fit her on the board, right? But when she's good, she's very good. Saria gives durable, great trait, really good attribute. When rest phase ends, like that copy is a really, really powerful attribute. Is a key part of the Yan Exodia 100 Foresight thing, alongside in conjunction with Lin and Silence Altar. And specifically that Exodia Saria is like an SSSS tier. Outside of that, she's decent. This attribute specialization is pretty good. Can give you a stupid amount of stacks. Not the best combat power though, and compared to like the other defenders. Spectre the Unchained. Again, I don't play Aegir that much, but she seems pretty good. Does give a lot of stacks. A lot of value in doll form as well. I don't actually know how that interacts with Resilient. Does she come back instantly without doll form? If she does, that's pretty good. Regardless, she's a good unit. One of the core parts of Aegir. Part of your Aegir cap out. Not playable outside of Aegir. Next up is Thorn's Altar. Pretty similar to Civilite Eterna. Just has a, generally speaking, really good attribute in that you just stack a lot of alliances. +4 is nothing to sneeze at. Like, let's say you give it to Snow Hunter, for example. +4 to Yarak, +4 to Precision. That's high value to give +4 to 2 different attributes. Gives Marvel as well, which is just, again, you always want to have Marvel active. Is easier to slot in as a splash than Civilite Eterna, particularly because of Swift. Much better trait than Assist Operator, but generally hard to fit still. But you do play him in your mid game some of the time. His only time he's on the final board is if you're playing with that one Swift comp that I mentioned with Leonhardt. Yeah, really good skill too. Just AoE healing on the entire board plus AoE damage. That's just a good skill. Rose Salt. Again, these specialized attribute skills are very powerful. It's very similar to Saria's, except you have a different way of, I guess, triggering it, where they don't have to be next to each other. The unit just has to be in the top right of the formation. So yeah, Rose Salt can be good. It's pretty difficult to play, I find, compared to Saria, just because Saria is a body that gives durable, and Rose Salt gives Swift, which is just a much harder trait to play. Not the best, too, because Rose Salt is only when sold. So when you get one activation, when Saria, you get infinite activations. But if you do want that activation, like let's say you're rolling down, let me give an example. Lin skill. This is when rest phase ends, right? So you can have Saria affect Lin, and then also have Rose Salt also affect Lin by buying Rose Salt during the whole roll down for the for every operator thing, and then sell it for a double application. Really triple application, because both Saria, Lin, and Rose Salt, right? That's a very powerful effect. So Rose Salt is really good, but only specifically in like conjunction to combos like that. Outside of that, Rose Salt is very difficult to generically play because of her trait, like I said. Passenger! For Sargon, this unit is a linchpin. If you get Passenger early, you have to consider just pivoting into Sargon. He is the main core unit for stack generation. You want to have Passenger set to S1, that's very important, because his attribute is on skill activation, gain +2 Sargon and Precision. Like, those are both just really, really good traits, and you're picking that up really fast. Once your Passenger's online, you just get a disgusting amount of stacks, like 20 stacks a turn even, but maybe even more. Once you're at 6 Sargon, those auto attacks that you're getting from the attack speed are really good because they're like buffed up. So yeah, Passenger S tier unit, especially in Sargon, not as like flexible as say Executor, though they're in the same ballpark of disgusting stack generation, because Executor also farms the Foresight, which is the econ trait. So on top of getting stack generation, you're getting infinite gold. While with Passenger, you're only getting stack generation, which is amazing on its own, by the way. A core part of Sargon. It's the late game stack generation for the comp. Julie is a pretty good secondary carry, maybe even primary carry, depending on how your team is built for Yan. There to let you hit 6 Yan. The issue is, if you hit Julie, you're mad that you didn't hit Lin instead, even though Julie is fine. Not much to say there. Good in specifically Yan, not really playable outside of Yan. Yep. Next up is Gladia, a core part in capping out Aegir, and also the econ arm of that comp as well. If you have the 3 operator thing for the attribute, you're farming an extra gold a turn, which also matters because this lets you hit elite operators if you happen to have pairs of these on your bench already, and you can keep farming these to find like tier 6 units or more tier 5 units, depending on your shop level. So Gladia is really good in just generating a lot of gold and generating a lot of units. Plus, what do you call this? The racial trait? I don't know. Abyssal Hunters get HP recovery. That's pretty good. Really good skill as well. You just pull everyone in a thing. Gladia is kind of the whole package when it comes to Aegir. Not particularly playable outside of Aegir. Can be played just as CC and as a way to generate gold. I wouldn't recommend it. It's a tier 5 unit, so you should have something better to slot in at that point. But yeah, good unit. Jessica, kind of a disgusting unit. A really flexible one, too. So, Jessica's a tier 5, so obviously you get her fairly late. But for every round you can scam with Jessica on your board, that's 1 additional equipment, right? Because when you enter rest phase, you gain an extra piece of equipment. So you could just farm items for as long as you can play her. In the Victoria comp, you're able to play her the entire time, which is just really good. Which also, like, double synergy because the items that she generates also counts towards Victoria. And it makes Victoria really easy to play Investor. Again, you want to have 3 Investor on your bench whenever possible. Although I know that's really difficult to do, of course. But if it's possible, you want 3 Investor on your bench. That way you can get really good when obtained effects to trigger twice. But yeah, not the best, like, unit, if you know what I mean, outside of Victoria because of the Victoria buffs. But you play her when you can in order to farm equipment, so really good for ramping up. Suzerain, pretty bad trait in assist operator, but is a decent unit in and of herself. And this attribute is actually quite good. Trigger the 1 obtain attributes of operators tile ahead of her. The issue with this again is that you get this rather late, as opposed to just triggering when obtained twice by buying the units, which is easy. This costs 2 unit slots to get the effect of. Like, let's say a really good when obtained unit is, for example, Ethan. So you put Suzerain and Ethan on your board. Okay, good. You're farming Ethan units, right? The issue with that is that your board strength is drastically cut because you're -2 units. So, I don't know. This unit is hard to use. I'm sure there is some combo that I'm unaware of that is really disgustingly good. It just has to exist. I'm just unaware of it. CN bros, you probably know. Lin, disgusting unit, one of the kit duo carries in Vertical Yan. The driver as well to the Exodia Yan board, where you have, like I said, Saria in conjunction with random Rose Salt and sometimes Silence Altar in order to get Lin ramping to get pretty much infinite Yan and Agile stacks. When you see the screenshots of like 700 Yan stacks, 700 Agile stacks, it's around that combo. Difficult to get running because you do need to have 100 Foresight from Executor Altar in order to like make it really smooth. But yeah, good unit outside of that. Just does a good amount of damage and is bulky because of she's a Phalanx caster. Yeah, Lin, good unit. Silver Ash. This is when you start being fucking disgustingly nutty in Yarag. You pair Silver Ash with the OG Praminix. Then you have Cold going on with Gnosis and Yara or whoever you give the Nevermelt Ice to. And then that's double application of a percentage chance for +1 stack of Carlin. With both Silver Ash and Praminix on your board, you could get like 20, 30, 40, a lot more maybe. Yarag stacks every single round. Really good. Plus a decently just good combatant. Does a lot of damage. Sees through invisibility, which is good in certain like enemy scenarios. Gives Marvel. Gives Investor. Like I've said, for every other fucking Investor unit, it's just disgustingly good if you're able to get it active, though it's hard to do. Great unit. Telopsis, a pretty good unit, if not a little difficult to play, but if you're able to have a way to abuse the when entering rest phase attribute, then that's you can kind of get some disgusting results. Who's an example? Stuff like Gladia, stuff like Jessica, stuff like Suzerain to like double cast. Telopsis in conjunction with those units. You're able to do some degenerate things, but you do get Aid plus Agile, which are just 2 really good traits, especially the Agile. The Aid kind of falls off this late, but Agile is really good. AoE attack speed, pair Telopsis with any other Agile, really good. Next up is Tifon, which I have realized is the correct way to pronounce that name after listening to her voice line. Extremely, extremely, extremely good unit. High cap out. Kind of bad if you're not playing the game good enough. It's kind of a skill check unit in the sense of her attribute is you get a lot of stats for every stack of your core alliance. Well, if you're not stacked, well, Tifon is kind of bad, but her traits are really good. Precision is just an AoE attack buff on all the high grounds. Agile gives attack speed to everybody. It's just kind of disgusting. It's an instant slot in. Sargon, for example, pair it with Passenger. That's precision. And you get this core alliance buff. Just a generically amazing unit. Extremely flexible. Can be in almost every single comp as long as they have precision enabled. You don't even necessarily have agile enabled, but if you're able to get agile enabled, it's just another bonus, right? But yeah, Tifon, really good. Tier 6s. Next up is Lemuin, my goat. Kind of the premier cap out, one of the two of the Laterano comp. One thing that's interesting about her is that yes, her S3 is better at low Laterano stacks, but funnily enough, if you get your executor going and you reach like several hundred stacks, I don't know, 400, 500 more of Laterano, then S3 suddenly becomes useless because you have so much fucking ammo that Lemuin is just sitting there pointing at the enemy menacingly, targeting the red laser sights on them, but never firing because she has so much ammo. So that's why I use S1, because if I have a lot of Laterano stacks, then I can make use of the ammo, you know? I can actually attack them. It's actually funny to watch. She just sits there and does nothing. But it's also very sad when you're in the moment. But yeah, precision, great trait. Laterano makes great use of the Laterano buff. That's why the Laterano late game is so good. Combination of Lemuin, Exusier Alter, and Executor Alter. They just make great use of that trait. Not much else to say there. Just one of the premier hyper carries in the endgame. Generally just a great unit. Great traits. You want to play 6 Yan in the Yan vertical. You want to play Durable because Durable is just a generically good trait. The attribute is good. You're just farming operators. Good chance that you get a good Yan operator as well. As a skill, like as a unit, he's fine. His S3 is actually quite good if you're able to like position it correctly. Like if you think about all the projectiles in your Yan board, they're all getting value out of this wall of birding, right? So it can be quite good. Not like a particularly amazing unit by any means, but just has really good traits and a really good attribute. Narantuya, not really good outside of Sargon, but the endgame hyper carry of Sargon, like specifically, if you get to Narantuya, you basically won the game if you have both Narantuya and Passenger, because Passenger gives you infinite Sargon stacks, then Narantuya gives you attack for those Sargon stacks, plus the Sargon in and of itself, giving a lot of attack speed and attack. The one thing I'll say is you have to be careful of where you position Narantuya. She doesn't get full value of the attack speed because she's a loop shooter, so you have to keep her fairly close to the enemy if you want to get max value. But if you do that, then Narantuya is then exposed and can get blown out and just killed by some random bullshit. But yeah, Narantuya is one of the late game cap outs of the standard 6 Sargon board. Great unit in that board. Useless outside of it. Vina Victoria. The cap out true damage of Victoria. Gives a lot of Marvel. Gives a lot of stacks for this. For both, really. If you have Vina Victoria on your board for long enough, you'll probably even get to the 50 stacks, 10 gold thing. But I'm more so interested in the disgusting amount of true damage that the Lions provide, which is really cool. Yeah, not much to say here. One of the cap outs of Victoria, though you'd much rather with that Shotbot hit Golden Glow, because I think she's better with all the Victoria items. But either way, they're both really good. If y'all the Vidaska, I had the mistake of having her on S1 or S3 some of the time, and then I actually read her attribute, and it's +2 on skill activation. Well, the only one with good skill activation is S2. So this unit has been largely useless for the majority of my playtime until recently. You hit her really late, but it's not bad. I don't know. It's just, you do get good stack generation. Don't get me wrong. It's just really hard to fit her into your final board, you know? She's in the same vein of Civilite Eterna and Thorns, where it is good stack generation, just difficult to fit. All right, next up is Ulysses, good old Mumu. Very difficult to play in a sense, but also extremely good. If you find her early enough and you're struggling to hit your 6 trait threshold, Mumu is really good because that's like a +2 instantly, assuming you have the item. So you get the dumbest, you get the ISO, you get the spat, you get the emblem, that you can basically turn anyone into the trait that you want. Plus, the Mumu herself counts towards the trait, and she gets the benefits of the trait, which is really good. This leaves for really flexible, interesting boards that you can make. Part of the issue is that some comps just want to use all their units in general. It's tough to fit Mumu in sometimes. And the other issue is that Mumu is extremely awkward to play, like in combat without player control. Like, you know how if you cast her skill too early, then the orb doesn't work and doesn't like split off into the clones? Stuff like that. Like the orb can just randomly die and then you don't have the timing necessary from a player to execute. When then Mumu just becomes a useless fucking chud the whole time. So I kind of tend to not play Mumu too much because of that inconsistency in your late game boards, but sometimes you have to, and sometimes it's genuinely good to. So yeah, it's really good. Like, for example, once you can buy her specifically for this. Like, I've played Laterano, for example. Rather, I've played Exusier Altar, for example, with the Yan emblem from the isomorph. I've played her as a Sargon before. Like, turning any of these late game hyper carries into the region that you're actually playing can be pretty good. Difficult to play, but a good unit. And then I don't really feel like I need to explain why Exusier Altar is good. If you know your Arc Knights, like non-Stronghold Protocol Arc Knights, you know this unit does a disturbing amount of damage. If you give her Laterano buffs, she is the premier late game cap out of that comp. If you give her the items to make her another trait, she'll be good there. Yippee. Also, she gives extra gold. That's pretty good. That's not bad. Alright, Silence Altar. Pretty good unit, if not a little difficult and advanced to play. One of the late game agiles that you always play if you're splashing an agile. This attribute is where she gets nutty. She can be SS tier with like that fucking Exodia that I mentioned before. Silence Altar, Executor with 100 stacks for Foresight, and Lyn, and Saria, and Rose Salt, and all of that garbage, the Yan Exodia. But it's difficult to do, and outside of that, in normal play, you just play Silence when you're able to splash Agile. A lot of the time that happens in the Swift board because of Tin Man and stuff like that, but yeah. Dagon Breaker, one of the cap outs of both the Swift comp and the Yarag comp. I've kind of been bought into the idea of S1. I don't have it active, but I've been bought into the idea of S1 for Dagon Breaker because you give her Never Melt Ice from Yara, and then this just kind of has her freeze everybody in front of her over and over and over again, which is pretty good. S3, I think, is probably better with Swift because you just get 10 plus the 15. I assume that is additive. I actually don't know for sure, but I assume you get 25 if this triggers, and then you can basically keep spam casting S3 on Dagon Breaker if you're going the Swift comp. But yeah, good unit in specifically those lines. Fairly inflexible though, and not good outside of it. Scotty, low-key only good in Aegir. You can play her as a bard outside of Aegir, but like at that point, wouldn't you rather play Civilite Eterna for the stacking from the attribute? I don't know. Like, it's impossible to say that this is an inflexible unit because she's a bard that does good bard things. Why was that activated? No. But yeah, Scotty is great in Aegir, whatever everywhere else. Pepe. One of the cap outs for Sargon, it's like in conjunction with Pepe and Narantuya. There's a combo that I mentioned earlier where even though Eunectus is kind of bad, if you get these quick combat rations and you instantly activate Pepe's skill and instantly permastun the entire enemy, then you can get a lot more Sargon stacks because it just kind of delays everything. Yeah, really good. I would favor Narantuya on your board more than Pepe, but Pepe is a really strong unit. You should have both in your late game for Sargon. The Resilient is nice because you have Resilient on Pepe, you have Defender on Heavy Rain, I believe, Durable on Heavy Rain, I'm naming TFT traits, and then you just splash in a Mudrock to complement both. It's just kind of a seamless board. Golden Glow! The cap out for Victoria, kind of disgusting. Every 3 stacks you gain attack speed, which is the most broken stat, especially for these global casters, Golden Glow and Lapland the Decadenza both. Not much to say here. Really, really, really easy to play too. You don't really need to think about it. Give her item, she pops off with Victoria. Give her Victoria stats, she gives attack speed. Wow, she mows down the entire enemy team. It's pretty good. Outside of Victoria, fairly inflexible. When you don't get this attack speed buff, it's tough. But you can circumvent that with the accelerator item, the Rage Blade that I mentioned before, that makes Executor pop off. The issue is, if you do that, you are then unable to use up 1 item slot, which means you can't turn Golden Glow into any other trait with the Isomorph. It can be difficult to slot in. So you may as well just figure out something easier, honestly. But if you hit, you hit, you know? Next up is Necras. A fairly inflexible unit to play, but if in the cap out of the Swift board, I often see Necras as your late game option because the Swift board kind of does infinite damage and has no bulkiness. So if you get run down, you get run down. But Necras solves that by one doing a fuck ton of damage, as all Swifts do, but also summoning the giant snake guy, dragon, whatever. I'm using the summer skin, so it's like a weird thing. Kind of makes an instant frontline, is really good in that cap out. Not really playable outside of that Swift comp, I think. That's all. Smile. Ifrit. This unit is not bad. Like, Precision is just a pretty good trait. I think as a DPS, she's whatever. She does has utility in Red Shred, but if you're playing Precision, it's like, eh. Her attribute is quite good, +2 to each in front. And that's everybody in that line, which is really good. But you have to be careful because of her range. I've done some degenerate things with, I just had a game where I had double of Yara's Ice upgraded. The Nevermelt Ice. I put them both on Ifrit, and I just had a Chud lane. A fucking lane of like 20 of the Chimeras just sitting there, being permanently frozen by Ifrit. I just farmed so many fucking stacks, like 50 stacks that round. It was so dumb. Because I didn't really do any damage to them. I just kept freezing them. Yeah, Ifrit's not bad. Kind of flexible, truthfully. So I think Ifrit is better than I give credit for. Just hard to fit into a lot of the late game boards unless you have like items specifically tailored for Ifrit. But yeah, Precision's always a good trait. The issue, I guess, I would say with Ifrit is that why would you slot an Ifrit when you could slide on a Tifon? You know? Like, this is just a disgusting attribute and alliance combination. Next up is Lumen. Lumen has the same issue as AFEL of the Vidaska, but Lumen is actually easier to use because you get +2 stacks for every alliance on the bench. So if you fill up your bench, which isn't that hard to do, you do get a fuck ton of stacks. It's just, again, aid is mid later in the game, though you do get increased defense, which is nice. It's just difficult to slot them in. Good unit, but difficult to slot into the final boards. Lastly, it is Mudrock. This is like one of the most flexible and useful units in the game. Durable and resilient are just disgustingly good traits. Pretty much every vertical core alliance has at least one of them, so it's just a no-brainer. Plus, her attribute is so flexible as well in the sense of the stacks. It's Tifons again, where you get the stupid amount of stats for stacks in core alliances. So it's a instant slot in. Like, for example, the standard Sargon board, I think I might have mentioned this earlier in the video, would be Mudrock, Tifon, 6 Sargon. It's just all of these. It's just such high value. I will say, as opposed to Tifon, sometimes you don't play the Mudrock because flat out, you do not need the front line. There's such a thing as too much frontline, and you'd much rather have the DPS. And that makes a lot of sense where you would cut Mudrock for maybe another Precision, or, I don't know, Exusier, somebody you added for yourself. Then it's reasonable to cut Mudrock. But, like, as a core, when you're first hitting shop level 6, when you're first filling out your board, Mudrock is a great plug and play until you have to do that. An extremely, extremely good unit. And then the other two that I have here are the ones that you're able to add yourself. Nothing to say there. I kind of like Ascalon a lot on S2. And that is all of the operators in Stronghold Protocol. Let me know what you thought of what my opinions are. And let me know what you thought I got wrong. Sion Bros, like I said, I played this for 3 days. And this is the conclusions I made. Sion Bros, you played this for weeks. Let me know what y'all think. Peace out.